You're listening to Inside Real Estate, your source for all things mortgage and real estate related. The show that brings you all the hottest topics and insights directly from those who know it most. Now sit back and enjoy the show.
What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Inside Real Estate. You've got myself, Paul Apostolakis. You've got Brad Weisgerber. We do not have Salvatore Guzmano. He is at the eye doctor getting his eyes checked. Yesterday was my birthday, so I'm going to just say that, and so you have to be nice to me.
I'm just gonna say that.
Yeah, you got to be nice to me because yesterday.
Paul's an old man now.
Yeah, I am old.
So he still thinks he's 24. But he's actually, in fact, an old man.
Yes, exactly. I actually still think I'm 24 in my head. So for those of you that are listening, thank you for listening. Please subscribe, share, leave us a review. You can find us on IREpodcast.com. You can go to Facebook.com/IRE Podcast to see us live. And any podcast app that you're listening to us on is sufficient. So, Mr. Bradley, we have a really interesting person on the show today. Her name's Avery Carl. I got to go through this bio. It's really cool.
Well, I knew she was going to be super cool when I saw her headshot and she's wearing a Guns N' Roses t-shirt.
Word. I said awesome. The same thing, right? Yeah. So she's awesome. She's from Mississippi, Big 12 championship women's soccer team in 2006. Then she spent a few years in a punk rock band. She performed all over the place, and then she turned that into she was a marketing major for a major label company. Let's do that. And now at the age of 20, well, not now, but at the age of 26, she owned 19 properties. She sold over $100 million in vacation rental properties in her career. She's just really an interesting person, and I think it'd be a great conversation to have her on and see how the hell she got into real estate. Don't you think? So let's bring her on. Yeah. Avery Carl, welcome to the show.
Hey guys, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. So a lot going on in your background. That's awesome. So how did you land in? Let's just obviously you did a lot of cool stuff, and we could spend a lot of time on that. But we're a real estate show. So how did you end up from doing all that cool stuff, traveling with a punk rock band, and then end up in real estate?
Kind of by accident. The traveling with a punk rock band was a product of graduating college in 2008 when there were 0 jobs. So I was like, well, I'll just play music for a while. Then I got into the business side of music, went and got my master's degree, was working as a marketing manager in the music business. And my husband and I moved from New York to Nashville. And our agent at the time, this was way before I had a license, our agent helping us find a house was really trying to get us to buy in this super fast appreciating hipster neighborhood in Nashville because everybody was making so much money just selling their house the next year. And we said, no, we came from Brooklyn. We don't want neighbors. Let's go out in the country. So we did that. But we thought, this buying a house that appreciates, that sounds interesting. So we had a little bit of money left, ended up buying one of those houses. Had no idea what we were doing. We didn't even know it was called real estate investing at the time. But we did, when we got that first rent check, we did start educating ourselves and realize that buying for appreciation could not be a stupider idea. Cash flow is the way to go. Then I got into short-term rentals kind of the same way. We had one little down payment left that we could use. And we thought, well, how can we utilize this so that we make the most amount of money possible in the shortest amount of time so that we can just scale our portfolio faster? Landed on short-term rentals. Nashville is terrible for short-term rentals regulation-wise. So we went a few hours east in the Smoky Mountains where everybody has been. Yeah, it's cool.
Yes.
Everybody has been renting cabins out there rather than hotels for decades and decades. So the rules are established. There's not any negative short-term rental rhetoric there. So I got my license so I could start doing my own deals. Basically, to be completely honest, because my husband is a terrible client and I felt really bad about that. So I was like, I'll just handle this. I would be sending texts to our agents I am so sorry. So
you're screw it. I'm just going to take the brunt of it anyways, right?
Yeah. I'm I know how to handle him. You just don't worry about it. He's a New Yorker. So got my license. But during that time of buying these short-term rentals in these vacation rental markets, I found that there weren't a lot of real estate agents who knew the answers to my questions or even really had any idea what I was talking about in terms of return on investment, how much these things should be making, self-management remotely. That's a big thing now. A lot of people all of our clients actually they're buying vacation rentals that as an investment because they make a ton of money, but nobody lives in the area where they're buying. So there was really nobody with any insight into any of that stuff. So I just bridged that gap and became that agent. And now we have offices in 6 markets. We are closing over 300 million this year.
Wow.
And
that's a big business.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's a long way from just, picking up a rental property. So that takes some chops. So, I mean, Brad, we kind of see that here in Michigan, where up north, we have a lot of short-term rentals, and that market has really blown up.
Yeah. I mean, short-term rentals, I guess, in general are kind of booming as opposed to a hotel market, because a lot of people would rather stay in a cabin or a cozier home than have to deal with a hotel.
I know I have
a place. Yeah. I mean, it's a brilliant market.
Yeah. And we have people that we do business with that have gotten into that business, and it is lucrative. Wouldn't you say, Avery? Like it you can make money off of it.
Oh yeah. So depending on where you buy, what you buy, I mean, I have 7, and for July alone, we grossed $115,000. So
wow.
Obviously that's gross, not net, but
right. But still,
I mean, we'll probably net about half of that, but that's still a ton of money. That's an entire salary in one month. So they're really.
And it doesn't. I mean, so talk to me about how a newbie right now that's kind of looking at investing, where should they be? Should they look at the short-term market, or is that too volatile? Or do you think that's a place where you should probably go right now?
Okay. So I'm going to over-explain here because that's a really technical question. So there are 3 types of markets that you can invest in short-term rentals. There's metro markets like Nashville. There are the big I call them fly to vacation rental markets because can't think of anything cuter to call it, but like your big expensive vacations like Hawaii, Mexico, Aspen, and then the regional drivable vacation rental markets. So I would never advocate for somebody just saying like, oh, this house down the street for me is for sale, I'm going to turn it into a short-term rental. That's not really optimizing and investing. In my opinion, that's not the way I would invest in short-term rentals. So we only invest in the regional drivable vacation rental markets because the most recent economic event we have is COVID. Those types of markets fared the best. They also fared the best in 2008, but for different reasons. So because the majority of the tourism that's driving in, they're all affordable vacations. So in 2008, nobody could afford to go anywhere. They couldn't afford to fly to Aspen, so they drive to the Smoky Mountains, or they couldn't afford to fly to Mexico, so they'd go to Panama City Beach. This last round, I don't know if I'd call it a downturn, but it was something.
It was an earthquake, like an earthquake,
a major economic event.
Right.
People didn't want to fly and be cooped up with other people and get breathed on, and they didn't want to go to big metro markets again because people. But they were totally cool. They were dying to get out of their houses. They were totally cool to just, drive to the nearest vacation destination and stay in a house, not a hotel. So there's that. And then the fact that the regional drivable markets are typically really mature vacation rental markets. So it's a place like, Destin and Panama City Beach, Florida, or one of our other markets. People have been renting, like my grandmother's owned a house in Destin since 1969. People are renting. And so basically these markets have had short-term rentals for longer than the internet has even been in existence. So they figured out how to monetize that decades and decades ago. The rules are established. They're completely dependent on tourism. So there's not a lot of primary homeowners to, not be happy that there's an Airbnb next door.
Right.
And there's also not a lot of hotel presence. So that's why I recommend the regional drivable markets, because they're mature, not a lot of hotels, not a lot of primary homeowners. So you have a more stable business than like on Nashville, where there's a constant battle with the city council. There's a constant battle with the primary homeowners who don't want an
homeowners
Airbnb.
Associations, right? Yeah, for sure, all day. Yeah, that's really interesting. Is this is this almost like a gold rush? You know what I mean? Like because let's put it this way, the housing market up North Michigan has exploded, and it is hard to find the right rentals, but there's still a lot available, I feel like.
So real estate as a whole right now, not just short-term rentals. So I invest in in all types of real estate. We have just south of 50 doors. So we've got apartment buildings, single family, long terms.
Yeah.
And it's hard to find anything in any asset class right now. And
Sure.
I wonder, there's any random Karen on the internet is like, oh, I'm going to wait for the crash. I'm going to wait for the crash. But I'm kind of like, this might be the new normal.
Yes. Yeah. It's weird to think that this might be the new normal, but the supply demand issue is not going away.
Yeah, that's not something that's just going to change the further, like immediately next year when now COVID's 2 years behind us. It's if you look, I've seen all these charts floating around. I can't actually cite one at the moment because I wasn't planning to talk about it, but
no, it's okay.
Where it shows the number of new constructions from 2000 to 2008, and there have been like 0 new constructions from 2008 until last year. So all that inventory for all of those home buyers isn't there. And that's part of, COVID definitely did a lot to accelerate this kind of thing, but I just don't see it changing. And I mean, as an investor, I wish it would, but I
don't see it changing just because of the supply demand issue. Now there could be other economic factors that could drive, interest rates could go up. It could slow down demand, but overall, I don't think the population, Brad, is getting any smaller. You know what I mean?
No. And a lot of people would think that I'm going to wait for the market to crash before I look at any kind of investing in a rental property or short-term or long-term rental. But like you said, when we started, it's not about an appreciating asset. That's like a bonus if it appreciates. It's more about the cash flow, right? Exactly. So it's still a smart time. If you can find a good property in a good location that people want to go to, it's a good time to scoop it up because you can get the cash flow, not worry about appreciating it. Because if you're buying just to sell it, you're not going to make the money that you're going to get with the cash flow asset.
Yeah, that's fair. There's arguments on every side of that. I always kind of go back and forth because, if I owned a lot of investment properties right now, Avery, there's an argument to say liquidate because you're going to get so much for your money, right?
But then what? So my problem right now is I've got some cash in the bank that is sitting there, and I'm like, I need to get this into some real estate, even if the cash flow doesn't make a lot of sense right now, just because the inflation of my money sitting in the bank is not doing anything money for me. Yeah. So even my deal margins now, I'm willing to accept a little bit less cash flow just to kind of get into something so that it's not just sitting there and losing money as inflation's going up.
That's interesting. Yeah, inflation for sure is something that's happening right now. And I don't know if it slows down, but I don't see it slowing down. I think inflation was low for a long time, but that's going to create investors like you who want to invest in more real estate because your money is sitting there, which is just kind of exasperates the whole thing. Right?
Yeah, it kind of makes the problem worse because there's already low inventory, and now we got more people wanting to get into real estate because.
Which is why I don't think it's going away. Right. Avery, so I'm you. I've got 100. Let's say I have $50,000 in the bank, and I want to buy a short-term rental. What am I looking for in that short-term rental for it to be like a good buy?
Okay, so want it to be in a regional drivable vacation market. So whether that's typically you can find those if you look for a beach or mountains or a lake or a national park.
Yep.
Typically, that's where you'll find those kinds of things. And you want to make sure that the numbers work at the price you're able to get it for. And to figure out what a property should be able to make, there are a few different tools that you can use. Rental history is not one of them. That is a big, big misconception. In long-term investing, rent rolls all day makes sense. It's really nice into a spreadsheet. But with short-term rentals, it's really more dependent on the manager and the management style. So like 2 different owners can own the exact same property on the same street and do wildly different numbers just by the way they manage it. So rental history is a variable. And to give you a little example, so say one person has a 5-night minimum night stay, the other person has a 2-night minimum night stay, and that's the only difference in their management. The 2-night minimum night stay person is going to have less holes in their calendar, so they are going to make more money over the course of the year than the 5-night guy. And
there's
a tiny tweak. So rental history is a variable and not necessarily an indication of future performance. So there are a few data tools out there you can use. One of them is AirDNA that measures the performance of all of the properties that were on Airbnb and VRBO since I think 2014 is when, as far back as their data goes.
Wow.
It's not perfect, but it's good. And then Price Labs, which is actually a tool that you use once you own a short-term rental to help you price it, self-explanatory. They have a market dashboard function in their dashboard that shows you a lot about what other properties in the area are making. And then the most organic way is to do what we call the enemy method. So you basically just go on Airbnb or VRBO and look at the neighborhood around the house you're looking at, look what your neighbors are getting, what's their price per night, how can you improve your listing versus theirs? Like, do they have crappy pictures, blah, blah. That's a pretty good way too. Although that is much more of just a from next 90 days picture of how they're doing. It's not going to show you any history, but that's a pretty good way too. So you kind of have to get as many data points as possible. That's how to get way back to your question. So you want to make sure that the number that you have come up with, that it should be able to make sense at the purchase price you're able to get it for. Things like pools are super helpful. But really, all you have to do, it's really not that complicated. So once you've picked your market, just use your common sense about what do tourists expect in this market, like mountains, they want cabins. Beach markets, they want condos on the beach, or they want the bright colored beach houses. So, you know, buying a 60s ranch home is probably not going to work. So, but really it's just like, would you stay in it? Would you vacation in it? Yes. If so, proceed.
Right. It's interesting. It's not just finding the right property, but it's also, there's a game within the game which is the management of the property too. So it's not as just like Brad, a lot of times on long-term rentals, like you put it up for rent, you know, the rent, it's much more static on that side. Right. But where Avery lives, it's a lot more fluid. They could be a different season that you're not priced well for, right? It could be, 4th of July is a hot season, so you can get a little bit more potentially. So if you're not moving that needle, I think that you're probably missing out on that. Wouldn't you agree, Avery?
Yeah. And back when I started, you had to do all that stuff manually and like go through your entire calendar at the beginning of the year to make sure the prices were where they needed to be. So people didn't book your 4th of July for like $2 a night. But now, like I mentioned before, Price Labs, Wheelhouse, there's a few other ones. I can't think of the third one that is the third big one, but there's a bunch of options out there for pricing managers that they just do all that for you. And we actually are making made 20% more the first year we started using a pricing manager and not trying to do it ourselves, just because its algorithm is so much more in tune to a lot more external factors than we could ever even know, because we're not machines on the internet.
Sure.
And
That's true.
It's been super helpful. So you don't even have to really do that anymore.
That's interesting.
How do you deal with actually managing the property? So say the water heater breaks or something like that. Do you just like hire local contractors and do you have anyone in the area to help with that? Or do you just solely rely on local people that you can call?
Yeah. So you have 2 core team members that you can build out everything else from there. That's your cleaner and your handy person. Actually, you probably want to, if you can, compile a list of 2 to 5 handy people so that you can make calls based on who's available. But, you know, they're going to know a roofer. Your cleaner might know an HVAC technician. You know, you can build out all the other contractors you need from there. But those are your 2 core people. That's all you need to get started. And if a water heater breaks, I'm going to do the same thing that if a water heater breaks behind me, I'm going to call somebody because I don't know how to fix a water heater. So it's a phone call, whether it's behind me or, you know, in Tennessee. So it's definitely a limiting belief of a lot of people that they need to be able to get to their property if in case of an emergency. But when you think about it, what would be an emergency that a guest would be having that it would be a good idea for you to go insert yourself into the situation? It's either going to be a liability, or if the guest is angry, the communication is not going to be documented on the Airbnb or VRBO platform, whichever one they booked through, and it's just a mess. So you need to go check on your property like once a year, but it's not a situation where things are going to happen that you need to like rush over there and do something. If towels are getting ratty or something, your cleaner will let you know. You just Amazon it to the cleaner. And a lot of cleaners nowadays just supply all that stuff for you for a higher per clean price.
It's almost probably like normal for these areas to have that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Do you suggest for someone to get a short-term rental that they need to renovate?
No, not always. That can be a way to get a good deal, like to add value. I've done that myself. Bought a property that it was really, really cute on the outside. The inside needed everything, and bought that for super cheap. Fixed everything up. It was worth $200,000 more immediately when I was done with it. So that can be a way to get in the game to get a more affordable property. But there are plenty. So in the markets that we're in, there's plenty of turnkey stuff ready to go that was already a short-term rental. You might want to, replace some furniture that you don't like or change a countertop here or there, but you don't have to do that now.
No, got it. Okay. Furnishing it. That's another part that you've got to go through and make sure that's furnished. Cause there's competition now. It's not just like I got a house, I got a couch. People are looking for certain things, especially in the Airbnb market. How many beds, how many people does it hold? How do you figure out the best way to create a layout for your Airbnb or your short-term rental?
So luckily for me, since in most of my markets, things that we're buying and that our clients are buying have been short-term rentals or just vacation homes in the past, they just come furnished. So you don't really have to mess with anything awesome. Unless you want to. So we have only had to furnish one or two, but that was because it was a reno job. And as far as layout and number of beds, so there's kind of two schools of thought on that. My school of thought is I don't like slamming 100 people into a 2-bedroom. I think that's a terrible idea. I think you're going to have more wear and tear on your property. You're going to get worse guests by doing that, because it sounds like a party to me. If 20 people are renting a 2-bedroom, why are you not getting a 5-bedroom?
Right.
So I also believe that if they're comfortable and have enough space in your house, then you're going to get a better review. If they come in and they're crammed together and nobody has their own space, they're going to be more sensitive to other things that may go wrong. Like if there's dirt somewhere or, if, I don't know, any number of just small cleaning items, I think they're going to be more sensitive to that. And that's going to show up in your review just because they haven't been comfortable the entire time. Their other school of thought would tell me that I'm leaving a ton of money on the table. They're like as many heads and beds as you can get.
Yeah, I've seen that.
As possible.
I've seen that.
Yeah, I don't like that. I think that's kind of a lot of that kind of investing and that kind of management is what's causing a lot of the backlash on Airbnbs, because people are slamming so many people into a property. And, we all have that one friend, right? And the more people that are in there in one room, the more likely to have several of those friends that are going to be the person to put their face through a window or something.
Yeah, no kidding. How do you try to stay away? I mean, obviously that makes sense. And I always thought about this because I've gone to Airbnbs and I've had people rent Airbnbs and kind of through parties there. And how do you stop people from maybe the wear and tear? Or is that just something you gotta take?
So we ask a lot of questions up front, and you'd be surprised how willing the partiers are to out themselves. Their first question will be like, hey, me and 15 of my friends are coming down to the rod run. Can you fit 17 dually trucks in your driveway? And then we'll just say, I don't think you're going to be comfortable here. I would suggest maybe a bigger property. So if you just ask a few screening questions up front and not take every single guest. I think a lot of people, when they first start investing, they get really caught up in, I have to get booked. It's actually better to weed some of that out up front. And because of that, if you do that properly, you're not going to have as much wear and tear. And you're going to have something happen every now and then. The worst thing I've ever had happen is somebody broke a door, but I've never had anybody trash my place. I've never had anybody damage any property. Over 7 properties since 2016.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think it's just a weeding out on the front end. And
well, it's like us, Brad. I mean, it's either you can be transactional and not care and just get the transactions, or you can be a reputation based type of whatever you want to be, and you get the right people at the right time. I think that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah,
I'd rather say no to some short term stuff for the long term gains.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a business philosophy that we have anyways. So, okay. So you love the short-term rental game. Is that what you're super hot on right now? Is that kind of your focus, or are you moving in other directions as well?
So 2 of my most recent 3 purchases have been apartment buildings long-term. I have and I've got one of those was a short term that's currently being renovated. It's not online yet. So if I see a good short-term deal, it can be kind of hard to pass up. But the whole reason that I even bought my first short-term was so that I could grow my portfolio faster, which to me is a diverse portfolio is the way to go. There are a lot of people who would tell me I'm wrong about that. You need to go all in on short-term because it makes so much money. But I like, we have a lot of single families, a lot of duplexes and 2 apartment buildings now. And I really like knowing that no one economic factor is going to screw me up in all of those asset classes.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's interesting. It is important to have to protect yourself. And so the apartment buildings, that's interesting. How many units are in the apartment buildings?
So we have a 12 and we're about to close on a 33.
How hard was that to get financing for the 33 if you were financing any part of it?
Not too bad. It's more about building relationships with the right people. So we happen to, we were looking in an area where my husband's from in the Midwest, and we didn't really know what we were doing. And this is just like 2 years ago, last year actually. And we thought, well, okay, what are we going to do here? And we just got on some Facebook groups, and there was one guy that kept posting on there, and my husband, Luke, said, hey, do you mind getting on a call with me real quick? I'm trying to get in this market and I don't know anything. Like, I'm not inexperienced, but I'm new to this market. Turned out that guy is like the biggest multi-owner in that whole city and has like 900 units awesome. Or something. Yeah. And so he was nice enough to say, oh yeah, I actually have this apartment building that I want to sell. Here are the banks that we typically work with, go use whoever. And because that guy referred us to those banks, we haven't had any problems. They're like, oh, he referred you. Okay, cool. And then, you want to have your PFS and everything all nice and lined out for them. And so we were organized. So we had the right person introduce us, and we were super organized. So we've had no problems getting financing, but it can be challenging. You just have to call a lot of banks. Yeah, no, that you just have to figure it out. I mean, because that's a whole different world, Brad. We are all residential lending. So that's a whole different world in my
single family or multifamily, but not like multi-unit.
No, I mean, four units is size we're going. Do you leverage financing on your properties, on most of them? How do you handle that? I'm a big fan of leverage. I would rather have 5 cash flowing properties that have mortgages on them than pay any off cash. To me, that's just, it's money sitting there that's not working for you, really. Correct. I would much rather leverage. You want the money in your hand, especially as cheap as it is right now. Yeah. I think it's so cheap to borrow money. It's kind of crazy. So I know you've sold a lot of homes yourself on the real estate side. So talk to me about that. How are you managing that side of it? How are you getting your business on that side of it? So I have kind of like somehow managed to, I guess it was maybe just like the first to the table on that in terms of real estate agents and being the expert in this space. Like just that opportunity to bridge the gap that I was talking about when I was looking and no agents could answer my questions on anything. That was out there for any agent in any vacation rental market to take. What separated them from me or me from them, I don't know, whatever. The separating factor was that I actually own and have successfully invested in these things. So I can speak from a place of experience. Right. And I don't have to say like, oh, call so-and-so at such and such property management company. It's really hard in short term, by the way, to cash flow with a property manager. So I think the fact that I just had the experience and I could speak from that and say, this is, and my clients still call, like people from 5 years ago call me when they run into a problem. They're like, what do I do? So, they have that sounding board well past closing, like the support basically of, I ran into a problem. Can you help? Because you own these too. Have you seen this? So it was really just like being the expert in the space because I also am the investor. So I've been in the buyer's situation, a million times. I mean, shit, I'd feel comfortable using you. I mean, like, you know what I mean?
Does it ever get weird when someone's trying to use you to buy a short-term rental, but do they view you as almost like a competition for the property because they know you're in that business as well? And you might. Are they like, you're not going to buy it, are you, Avery? Yeah, you're not going to buy this from me, are you?
No, I mean, I've had a handful of clients ask me that over the course of the years. Like, well, if these are so great, why aren't you buying them all? Well, Fortunately for you guys, I'm not made of money and can't buy every deal that comes on the market. And if there ever happens to be something that I like and a client also likes, so just give it to the client. I'll get the next one. I have access now, since we've sold so many and have so many relationships, to so much off market stuff. Like if it pops up, then great. But I always give it to the client.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And then so people just kind of know you for, are you just doing that, or are you doing a lot of other real estate as well?
No other real estate. We don't take any clients that want to buy long terms. We don't take any clients that want to buy or sell primary homes, only short term.
Interesting.
I found that at first, when I first started, I was like, yes, come to me with all your buying and selling real estate needs. And it just, I found that niching down really actually was when my career took off, rather than trying to be a jack of all trades.
That's interesting, because I mean, Brad, I don't see that often in our world, where there's real estate agents will take any deal anytime. It seems like sometimes
anything and everything.
So that's interesting that you decided to niche down, and it's a good niche, because it's a lucrative niche. So what's next for you?
Starting the punk rock band back up.
Yeah,
obviously.
It's
the only logical step.
I'm about 20 pounds away from stage weight again. We're 2 kids in recently, so it's like.
How old are the kids?
They're 2 and 9 months.
Wow. So I have a 4 and a 5-year-old. Having 2 kids is a game changer. It's like having 15. Brad has 3, and I don't know how he does it. I never see him because of the kids, but congratulations on the kids. All right. So we do 3 questions on every show, Avery. So we're going to do 3 questions for you. They're totally random. I make them up, or Brad makes them up. Do you want to start, Brad, or do you want me to start?
You can start with one, and I'll have one.
Let's just start with what scares Avery. What scares you the most?
Probably Zillow.
Fuck Zillow. I can't stand Zillow. I'm over Zillow. Aren't you over
why does
Zillow?
Why does Zillow scare you so much if you're in the short-term rental business? Because I don't think they do any of that currently, anyway.
Not yet.
Not yet, right? But there's money in it, and they do real estate. So, they also have a mortgage company. They're also a real estate agent, right? So they're just trying to be all things real estate. So Avery sees the writing on the wall, like she sees that kind of like trotting behind her, right?
Yeah, and I mean, they may never get into short term specifically, but I think any impact that they have on the real estate world as a whole will eventually trickle down to my specificity. Yeah.
I mean, look, I've got my own feelings about Zillow. I'm actually not a fan, just because I think it's crazy that we pay Zillow to basically undermine us.
And so many agents are still paying them thousands of dollars a month.
Oh, tons of agents.
Tons of agents, and they're just paying them to just replace them. I don't know. It's the craziest thing in the world.
It is.
All right. Go ahead. No, go, Brad. You go ahead.
If you had the opportunity to live in a body and be that person, any member of any rock band, musician, band ever, dead or alive, for a month, who would it be?
For a month only. Okay, so that changes things. That if it's forever.
No, for 1 month.
Just for 1 month.
Live and
you get to rock it out with any way you want.
Do they have to be current, or can it be?
They could be dead or alive. Anyway,
dead or alive.
It could be Elvis.
Okay, I would like to be Joan Jett in the early '80s.
Joan Jett was a badass. Joan Jett was a badass. That's awesome. All right, and then Brad, do you have another one?
Nope.
Okay, you kind of took mine, but you spun it into the. I think you did a good job. If you could be one animal in the animal kingdom, what would it be and why?
I think, I don't know, probably something in the ocean, but not something that gets eaten. So I guess maybe a shark.
Sharks do the eating mostly, but don't orcas or the great, like the killer whales eat them?
Yeah, and that would probably work better for me because the killer whales are cuter.
Yeah, so, and then they'll kill you. They're cute, but they can kill you, right?
That sounds better than sharks aren't as cute.
That's awesome. Avery, tell the audience how they can get a hold of you if they need to.
Sure. Right on my website, theshorttermshop.com. We have email addresses right there, textable phone numbers because we are millennials and we prefer to text.
Yeah.
And also on Instagram at the Short Term Shop.
That's awesome. Avery, you've been.
If someone wants to stay in one of your properties, do they reach out to you through that, or how do they find one of your properties if they want to experience it?
So it's all on Airbnb and VRBO. So if they want the link, they can just email me and I'll send it out.
Perfect. Cool. Perfect. Well, Avery, you've been absolute pleasure to be on the show. I appreciate you taking some time and kind of imparting your knowledge. I think it was really interesting.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for having me, guys.
Absolutely, Avery. Be good. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
But
how interesting was she?
Super interesting and wicked smart.
Wicked smart. You can tell she's wicked smart. She knows her stuff.
She knows her shit.
Yeah, I was impressed. I like she knows her shit. Like you said, she really does. I feel bad. I feel like Sal missed a good show.
Yeah,
but you know, what are you gonna do?
He's got to get his eyes fixed. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, he's got to get his eyes fixed. So there was this story that I did want to hit on, but I didn't want to bore her with it. Do you got a minute to talk about it?
Yeah.
So the DOJ, so the NAR is ready to rumble with the DOJ. Look at this. The Justice Department dropped the gloves, withdrawing from an antitrust settlement with real estate trade groups, but a blindsided NAR has yet to punch back. So basically, the DOJ and the NAR were in agreement over a lot of things.
Are not good for. So the audience knows the DOJ is the Department of Justice. Hopefully, most people know that.
The NAR is the National Association of Realtors.
Okay,
they had an agreement. Basically, they were working through an agreement of like in talks of it. They're working through. They had a negotiated agreement. They thought they were good. And a lot of it was based on how they conduct their business. And a big part of that was commission disclosure, which was interesting. So, and here's a quote that I just to give you an idea of how this is being like seen. Maybe understandably, the DOJ's actions constitute a declaration of war with the NAR, said Ken Johnson, a real estate economist at Florida Atlantic University. It's war that could be fought under the glare of public courtrooms instead of negotiated way behind closed doors, Johnson said. At stake are the practical rules agents must follow to do their job and the essence of how agents earn their money. Why do I think this is interesting?
You're asking yourself or are you asking me? I don't know why you think it's interesting. How do I know what you like? I don't know why you think it's interesting.
I thought maybe you would because we as loan officers went through this a long time ago.
Correct.
Right? Like we had massive scrutiny on how we got paid, right?
Yep.
And that's all that's going to happen.
It changed a lot of things for the better, but I don't understand it so much with real estate agents because I mean, their pay isn't subject to like how, so back in the day, loan officers could get paid on the yield of the rate, right? They could sell you a higher rate to get more money. Can't happen anymore, right? But that's how it used to happen. Real estate agents don't really have anything like that. Like they get a percentage of the sale, right? And that's disclosed. It's all there, right? So I don't understand.
It's really how they disclose it, though. It's also there's. I mean, it is interesting, but under scrutiny is how they get paid. I know that for a fact. And a lot of discount, like how they promote how they get paid. Whether if you're a selling agent or a listing agent, the selling agent's got to know they're getting 3%, right? When they're buying the house. So there's a lot going on, and I'm really interested to see because a lot of businesses are built around this current way of getting commissions.
Yeah.
Right. 6%, but 6% is a lot on a transaction, dude. I have to say.
So the DOJ withdrew from the agreement, right?
Yeah.
But what does that really imply? Like, what is that? What's that going to? I guess I don't understand what the implications are.
Basically, they're saying that because they withdrew, that they're expecting the DOJ with the Biden administration now.
Oh, they're expecting to come out with some stricter guidelines.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Because what was going on before was with the other administration. So now we've got a new administration. They're like, whoa, we're out of this. We don't like this. We want to reform this, basically.
Gotcha.
Right. So that is going to be an interesting thing to watch. And it'll be public. That's and by the way, there's right after that, there's a class action lawsuit on the NAR on how they disclose their commissions.
So interesting.
Yeah. So
I don't know if there's any lobbying there that happens.
I don't know, but it'll be interesting to see what happens. But all right, man. Well, that's our show. I just keep that on your radar. We'll talk about that if anything comes up on that. But I thought it was an interesting thing to bring up. So for those of you that have lasted this long on our show, thank you. We appreciate you. Please like, subscribe, and share the podcast. If you're here and you didn't like the show, what do we say to that, Brad?
Fuck off.
Yeah, that's it. So please like, share, subscribe. Find us on irepodcast.com, Facebook /Irie Podcast. You can go to YouTube or any podcast app that you listen to. Peace out. We're out.
See ya.
You've been listening to Inside Real Estate, the nation's top real estate podcast. Don't forget to follow us at irepodcast.com and everywhere where podcasts are available.